My name is Chris, and today we're going to test these. Welcome to the Vinyl Attack. One of the very first accessories someone buys when entering the hobby is an anti-static brush. Right away, people realize that combating dirt, dust, and debris is one of the cornerstones of getting quality sound and playback from their records. But in the ever-controversial world of vinyl record collecting, even this can be contentious. How on earth can a small carbon fiber brush cause such a stir, you might ask? Well, if you're newer to the hobby, you'll soon find out that anything can cause emotion amongst the interwebs vinyl collecting elite. From how to interpret the instructions on a Milty Zero Stat, to debating about how best to use a carbon fiber brush on your records, nothing is off limits. And if you're more of a seasoned veteran of this hobby, you know exactly what I mean. The challenge before me today is to test one of these main areas of debate. Does a carbon fiber brush eliminate static on a record, as is the claim on its packaging and amongst some of the supporters of this tool? We'll then pit that against this, the Thunderon conductive record brush from SleeveCityUSA.com. We'll just call that the Thunderon brush from here on out. I'll go over the details of this brush later, but first we need to talk about what I consider to be the elephant in the room. How best to discharge the dust from your carbon fiber brush after holding it on the record for a few rotations. Or as it's more widely known, which way to drag the brush when you're done dusting. Much to the dismay of many of you, however, this isn't something I'm going to tackle today, and here's why. To try and conduct a controlled test of dust removal that is not only repeatable, but also accurate, is simply beyond my means so far as I can tell. Sprinkling some dust on a record and trying to discern which way you should move the brush at the end of the cycle isn't an accurate way to test the effectiveness of any method, and moreover, I think it's also unnecessary if you follow a couple of tips I have for you. For about a year now, I have been wet cleaning every record I purchase before I put them into a brand new anti-static inner sleeve or directly on my turntable. Yes, I'm using an ultrasonic cleaner, but this isn't the point. It's also not necessary for my suggestion on how best to use a carbon fiber brush. A wet clean, whether done in a sink, with distilled water, using a record vacuum machine, a spin clean, or an ultrasonic, is what we want to do to remove the dirt and debris from a record and really give it a good clean. If you're using a surfactant like Triton X or my current favorite, TurgiClean, you can rest assured and also clearly see that the solution is in fact getting deep into the grooves where the gunk resides. A surfactant, also sometimes called a wetting agent, simply breaks the surface tension of the water on the vinyl, allowing it to flow and clean all the way into the grooves rather than beating up on top. Simply follow the directions of the product of your choice to mix a solution and clean as necessary. Follow this up with a rinse of distilled water, and you'll have a record that is about as clean as it's going to get, depending on the device used. A spin clean won't have nearly as good an effect as a quality ultrasonic cleaner, but it will still be much better than only using a brush for a dry clean. So then, why use a brush at all? Quite simply, for dust. Now, I'm sure most of you are already aware of that, but a key factor that some might be missing is that after a wet clean and setting the record aside in storage for a time, using some sort of an anti-static device is key for dust removal when bringing the record back out. My preferred method for the last couple of months or so after testing and determining the most effective way to eliminate static is to clean the record as mentioned or take it out of its sleeve if it's already been cleaned, give it a treatment with the D-Stat for static, place it on my platter, and then give it a quick dust with a carbon fiber brush. That's it. Pretty simple and straightforward for me, but what if you don't have a D-Stat, or even a Zero Stat? After all, those tools are quite expensive. Well, that's where the confusion with the carbon fiber brush comes in. While searching for an affordable alternative to combat static and a cleaner record, many people go after the carbon fiber brush due to its price point and its performance claims. To test if these brushes work, I've picked up two of the most popular on the market, and we're going to put them through their paces. First up, coming in at $17, is the AudioQuest Anti-Static Record Brush, now to be called the Silver Brush for the remainder of the video. I've heard many people say, mainly on forums, that this brush is not intended to eliminate static, it simply doesn't cause static while brushing up dust. But the claim that it kills static is right on the box. It's kind of hard to argue with that. Second up will be the new and improved AudioQuest Superconductive Anti-Static Record Brush. Quite an impressive title for a product, I think, but we'll call it the Gold Brush from now on. This improved $30 model claims to have in excess of 1.2 million superconductive carbon fibers to gently reach into the groove, pull out dust and dirt, while also claiming that it will eliminate static. Lastly, we will test the Thunderon brush from Sleeve City, which also costs $30. Their claim is that this brush, which is made of a mixture of Thunderon and fine goat hair, is perfect for vinyl records in reducing static and brushing away dust, as its ultra-fine hairs can reach deep into the grooves. Thunderon, according to the manufacturer Nihon Samo Dyeing Company Limited, uses a chemical reaction to bond the molecules of copper sulfide with the molecules of host fibers. Make of that what you will. To test all three brushes, we will be using the following two methods. 1. We will take a reading of the static on the record to be treated in hand. We will then place the record on the turntable and take another reading before treatment. We will then follow the instructions AudioQuest provided for its brushes, even for the Thunderon brush. We will then take a reading after treatment on the table, and lastly, we will take a reading of the record in hand once again. 2. We will take a reading of the static on the record to be treated in hand again. This time, we will follow the directions given for the Thunderon brush for all three brushes. Because this calls for treatment in hand, that is where the after-treatment measurement will be made as well. To quell your curiosity, however, I will take a final measurement of the treated record on the turntable. While we've already learned that testing and treating the record in hand is the best method in the DStat video, it's just easier to show the new people here's what's happening and why, so I apologize for any redundancy. The instructions for the AudioQuest brushes are identical even though the silver brush has no gold contacts. I assume this is simply a cost-cutting measure by AudioQuest. At any rate, the instructions are as follows. Place record on platter and start turntable. Holding the anti-static record brush's gold contacts, gently place the carbon fibers across the grooves. The fibers must touch the grooves, but should not bend. It is the ends of the fibers which do the cleaning. Let the record turn a few times in order for the carbon fibers to gather both visible dust and the microdust that is too small to see. With the brush still on the record, rotate your wrist and the brush counterclockwise, lifting the fibers off the record. Try not to lose the dust as you lift the brush off the record. Rotate the brush within the black handle to clean the dust off the fibers. The brush is better at gathering dust than holding dust, so repeat steps 3 and 4 a second or third time. For records that are cleaned every time they are played and not left out, a single pass with the anti-static record brush will keep them clean. The Thunderon brush actually has its own video from Sleeve City, but I'll summarize here. Holding the record in hand, take the brush and use a light whisking motion around the circumference of the record several times to eliminate static. In their video, they brushed the record 22 times, albeit not in any real sort of pattern. So, I'll be doing the same. Hooray. Alright, I'm strapped in and grounded once again. We're going to start with our first record, take a reading, and we're going to start with the silver brush. 9, 10, 9.5, 4. Now let's get a reading of the record on the table and see how much static dissipation has happened into the table itself. 0.5, 0.9, 0.5, 0.3. Now we'll treat the record as instructed, spinning it a few times, holding the brush. We have no contacts, but I'll hold it by the metal handle, and then going to lift counterclockwise and see if we get any results at all. Right away I'm noticing that this brush, which is brand new to me, seems much stiffer than the gold contact ones. These, maybe it's because I've had it for a while, the bristles seem a little softer. This seems a little harsh on the record, and I don't like the sounds I'm hearing, but that's not the point of this test. Let's take a listen, or let's take a look at the readings and see if we have any change whatsoever when it comes to static. 0.4, wow, 1, 0.7, 0.3. So, again, pretty consistent. We're off by a tenth, we're up a couple of tenths, we're up a tenth. This is what I would consider a very consistent result when you're talking about static electricity and how finicky it can be. Let's take the record off and see how much of that static comes back now. 7, 14, 7, 4. Again, it's pretty consistent. We're down a couple of points here, but we're up 4 there, down a couple here. It's kind of a wash. We've got a lot of static electricity, so this brush did nothing, but I'm going to test it again. I'm even going to use a second record because I want to show that this is a repeatable test. So we're going to put this record aside, break out a new one, and do it again. 11, 9, 7, 6. On the table we have 0.15, 0.25, 0.4, 0.3. Let's give it a treatment. We lost dust and a couple of bristles there. True neutral, 0.6, 0.4, 0.1. This isn't a huge gap, but it is a result. Then again, I don't think it's the brush doing anything. I think it's just the table being moved, the record being moved, static moving around in the table. So to find out for sure, we're going to take the table or take the record back up and give it another measurement to see if all of the static has returned, which I bet you it has. 7, 7, 6.5, 3. We do see a change here from the baseline to the final removed record, but again, it's not a marked improvement of any kind. We're still very much in the positives, and I feel comfortable between the first and second test saying that this record or this brush, if you're treating the record on the table, isn't showing us anything. Let's move on to the gold handle brush. 11, 11.5, 13, 6.5. On the table, 1.5, 1, 1 point, nope, just 1. Let's try it with the brush that I use on a regular basis and see if we get anything. One, 1.5, 1.8. Looks like it went up a touch. Let's see if the static came back. 13, 15.5, 12, 6. Well, that clearly didn't do anything, but we're going to try it again just for repeatability to make sure that we're being thorough. 9.5, 9, 11, 7. 0.25, 0.8, 1, 0.6. It's times like these that I realize using my own personal tools isn't the best ideal for testing. Point 7, 1.3, 9, 6, 0.6. And let's try it off the record as well, or off the turntable. 10, 11, 11, 6. Once again, these are fairly consistent. The static's coming back a half a tenth there, 2 points there, it's the same, and a dipped a tenth there, so it's pretty much identical. As we've already learned, treating the records on the turntable simply isn't effective, but this is what the manufacturer said to do, so we're trying it off. We're even going to try it out with a Thunderon brush right now and see what we get. 11, 10, 4.5, 2. I forgot to test it on the table, but I don't think it's going to matter, so we'll take the readings and see what we get. 0.3, 0.5, 0.4, 0.4. We're going to remove it and see if the static came back. If in fact it did, taking the table reading won't be as big a loss as we think. 7, 10, 6, 3. Consistent results. Not a big surprise. Actually went down a little, but it went up a little, so pretty much the same, and that's what we would expect. We're going to do it one more time with a separate record just for consistency, and then we're going to try the Thunderon brush method on all 3 brushes. 7.5, 4, 2.5, 2.5. 0.4, 0.05, true neutral, wow, 0.2. That record bled off a lot into the table, but I bet you it comes back. Don't have a preferred way to clean this, so I'm just going to kind of dust it off to the side on the package it came in. .4, 0.15, true neutral, 0.15. Slight variance, but pretty consistent once again. Now let's take a reading off the table. 6, 3.5, 2, 2. As we suspected, really nothing to write home about. I think we can finally put to bed that treating any kind of a record on the turntable is not effective. We can also probably put to bed that using these carbon fiber brushes does absolutely nothing to eliminate static, at least on the table. We will now try it off the table and see if that makes a difference. 16, wow, 17, 18. There's a lot of static on this record. 18, 17, 11, 10. Wow. Let's treat it with the silver brush using a whisking motion as described in the Thunder On video. I feel like I'm abusing this record with these tiny bristles. I would absolutely not recommend doing this with one of these brushes. This is, I think I'm scratching the dog snot out of this record, but let's see if that did anything to it as far as static removal. 4, 5, 2, 3. No kidding. Let's place it on the table and get a reading there and see what we've got. 0.25, 0.25, 0.4, 1. On the table, it's good. I was actually kind of surprised. You know what? I'm going to check, just for my own edification, I'm going to check and see what they are back in hand. 4, 5, 3, 7. Okay, so they went up a little bit. That's neither here nor there, but the fact that we went from 18 and 17, which is almost as high as that meter will read, down to single digits, does show that that brush did something. So let's try it again with a different record. 9, 13, 10, 6. And for those of you wondering, yes, I have tested it. When I set the record down to write down the numbers, it doesn't affect the test numbers. So let me quickly reduce the amount of debris on this. And we'll try this again. Still scares me though. Complete honesty, I know I was supposed to count about 22 times. I completely lost track, so let's hope that's good. Let's check it out. 0.5, 3, 11, 1. So now we're starting to get very mixed results on this. I think it's because using this is very ineffective and it's not repeatable. We're going to try it again with the gold contacts, but let's get right down the table. 0.4, 0.2, 2, 1. It's not a method I would recommend, but if you're in a pinch, it may be worthwhile using a carbon fiber brush, holding it in your hand, as long as you're extremely careful. 9, 10, 6, 6. Now we're going to treat it with my personal brush, which I'm going to regret. But let's see what happens. 0.5, 1.5, 2.5, 0.5. Let's take a reading on the table. 0.2, 0.2, 0.4, 0.2. It does seem like we are seeing a bit of a difference when it comes to using carbon fiber brushes. So that might in fact work at a pinch. "16, 12, 10, 7. "8, 5.5, 4, 4.5. Not nearly as big a reduction there as with the first record. So again, if nothing else, the brushes are showing me that they're inconsistent because the other tools that we've used have had bigger results that were more repeatable and more consistent. 0.4, 0.7, 0.4, 0.3. Last but not least, we're going to try the Thunderon brush, which is supposed to have the biggest hype behind it when it comes to removing static as far as these brushes are concerned. 3.5, 5.5, 12, 6. Let's see what this does. I actually counted 22 on that. Go figure. 2, 2.5, 4, 2.5. Little reduction, big reduction, little reduction. But if nothing else, it seems like it's evening the static across the record, which is better than nothing, and it is lower than it was. I'll take a reading on the table and see, but we know that the static's going into the table, so this might be a moot point. Neutral, neutral, 0.3, neutral. That's pretty impressive, but again, the table's doing the work, so I want to see if it comes back just to know. I probably should have wrote that column down, but 2.5, 2.5, 3, 2. Yeah, it's pretty much right where we were. So that's consistent if nothing else. 11, 8, 7, 7. Let's try to remove some of this dust. I don't know if wiping it down that is the best idea either. I don't know if there's a good way. They don't explain on how to clean the brush. I don't think you want to wipe it on your fingers either. Maybe the table? We'll do a little Bob Ross. Hopefully that helps. But let's give this a shot and we'll see if this reduces the static. Now that's the 22. I'm going to go a little bit more just to see if it does anything. Let's see what we get. 9, 5, 5, 3. 0.7, 0.3, 0.7, 0.3. So there are numbers. I would say that I expected this to do the best by far because of the marketing behind Thunderon, the material itself, as well as the marketing done by Sleeve City. But it would seem that if you are brave enough, and I wouldn't recommend this, if you are brave enough, if you want to take one of these AudioQuest brushes and you want to brush your record in your hand, you have a better chance of reducing static in a pinch than using nothing at all. Personally, I would still probably drop the $10 for one of the electric lighters or the plasma lighters that I reviewed. If you have the money, a D-Stat is the king as far as I can tell, or a Milty Zero Stat, but if this is all you have, you can make do. Make it work. So there you have it. Another static test video in the books. Did any of this surprise you? Will it change any of your cleaning and maintenance habits? Let us all know in the comments below. And I also want to say thank you very much to those of you who purchased t-shirts over the last week. Over a dozen of you were kind enough to help support the channel with them, and many of you bought stickers while you were there. If you're in a position to help the channel grow, you may also consider supporting it on Patreon. There's a link below for all of these items. Last but not least, thank you to all of you who support the channel by clicking like and subscribe as well. Every little bit helps. I appreciate you, and I look forward to next time.